All right, today we are diving deep into the story of Enron. You know, that corporate giant that seemed like it had it all, right up until the moment it had absolutely nothing. This whole thing is a wild story of ambition, pure deception, and a collapse so big, so spectacular, it literally changed the rules of the game for good. So, picture this, December 2001. $63 billion in market value just disappears. And look, this wasn't just some number on a spreadsheet. No, this was the life savings of thousands of people, the retirement plans for employees who'd been there for decades, and really, the trust of an entire country in its biggest companies.
Poof! Gone. And it felt like it happened overnight. This wasn't some slow, predictable decline. It was the complete and total implosion of America's seventh largest company. It was like a financial black hole just opened up and swallowed it whole. And it left Wall Street completely stunned. Not just that it happened, but because for years nobody could figure out how it happened.
I mean, you have to understand, at its peak, Enron was the future. They went from being this kind of boring pipeline company to an absolute energy trading powerhouse. Fortune magazine called them the most innovative company for 6 years in a row. The stock price? It was a rocket ship, soaring up to over $90 a share. They told everyone they weren't just selling energy, they were selling the future. So how on earth did a company this massive, this celebrated, turn out to be nothing but a hollow shell?
Okay, so the engine that was driving this whole illusion was a really, really clever accounting trick. And you know the craziest part? For a while, it was totally legal. This was the tool that let Enron turn pure fantasy into actual profit right there on their official books for everyone to see.
So at the heart of Enron's early deception was this thing called mark-to-market accounting. Let me break it down. Say Enron signs a 10-year deal to supply energy to California. Now, normally, you'd book the profits each year as the cash actually comes in, right? Well, Enron would instead estimate the entire 10 years of potential profits and report all of it as earnings immediately. On paper, they looked like an absolute cash machine. But in reality, a lot of these projected profits were pure, unadulterated guesswork.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures how absurd this was. Enron was building this fantasy of just unstoppable growth, but it was all paper profit. And that put the company on this insane treadmill. To keep that stock price flying high, they had to report bigger and bigger earnings every single quarter, which meant they had to chase bigger and crazier deals, not because they were good for business, but just to generate these massive upfront paper profits to feed the machine.
But, you know, all these paper profits were creating a very real problem. A lot of Enron's actual businesses were failing, leaving them with mountains of debt. So what do you do with all that financial garbage? Well, you don't report it, you hide it. And they did that using a truck that was way, way more sinister than mark-to-market accounting.
And this is where the special purpose entities, or SPEs, come in. These things were the secret weapons of the CFO, a guy named Andy Fastow. He cooked up dozens of these shell companies, basically financial black holes, with one single purpose: to make Enron's books look perfect. They were technically separate companies, but let's be real, Enron pulled all the strings.
It gets a little complicated, I know, but there's a really great analogy for how this worked. Just imagine trying to sell your broken-down car to your dog. Stick with me here. Okay, so here's the scam. Let's say Enron owns a power plant that's losing millions. Step 1, they create one of these SPEs, a fake company. Step 2, they sell that failing power plant to the SPE. Step 3, the SPE pays for it using money that was secretly backed by Enron's own skyrocketing stock. And what's the result? The debt magically disappears off Enron's books and, get this, Enron gets to book a fake profit from the sale. It was a financial magic trick, and its only purpose was to make garbage look like gold.
And the guy who designed this whole scheme, Andy Fastow, he was even having fun with it. He gave the SPEs these ridiculous names like Raptor or LJM, which actually stood for the names of the top executives. It was like an inside joke, hidden in plain sight. And he wasn't just hiding debt, he was making himself rich, personally pocketing over $30 million from running these little side companies. All while Wall Street analysts were praising Enron's amazing financials, and regular employees were being told to pour their life savings into the company's stock.
So by 2001, this whole illusion, this whole fantasy, it was just becoming impossible to keep up.
The lies were piling on top of lies, and the structures they built to hide everything were starting to get really unstable. You could start to see the cracks, and the entire house of cards began to wobble.
And the fall, man, it was fast and it was brutal. It really started with a massive red flag. In August of 2001, the CEO, Jeff Skilling, the guy who was supposed to be the genius behind the whole strategy, he just quits, citing personal reasons, just walks away. A few months after that, the company admits to accounting errors, which is just corporate speak for we cooked the books. And suddenly, hundreds of millions in profit just vanished. Investors finally woke up, and there was a stampede for the exits.
And at its peak, the market believed the story completely. This number, over $90 a share, that represented total blind faith in the innovation, the growth, the pure brilliance of the smartest guys in the room. The story was just too good to question. But then, the truth came out. And that belief, it just evaporated. Overnight, the story was exposed as a lie, and in just a few short months, that $90 stock became this, 26 cents. 99% of the company's value was just wiped out.
And here's the kicker. People on the inside were sounding the alarm. A vice president, Sharon Watkins, wrote this chillingly accurate memo to the CEO, Ken Lay. She laid it all out, the problems, the off-the-books companies, the disaster that was coming. And his response? He didn't see a fraud that needed to be fixed. Oh no, he saw a PR problem that just needed better messaging. Unbelievable.
So this all begs a huge question, right? Every public company has an independent auditor, a firm whose entire job is to check the numbers and make sure they're real. Enron's auditor was one of the biggest in the world. So where were they in all of this?
Well, it turns out the watchdog was actually a co-conspirator. Arthur Andersen wasn't just auditing Enron's books, they were also a major consultant, and they were raking in millions in fees for advising Enron on how to structure the very deals they were supposed to be policing. I mean, talk about a conflict of interest. And when the investigators started closing in, did the firm cooperate? Nope. They panicked. They ordered the shredding of thousands of documents, FedEx boxes just full of financial records. They were eventually convicted of obstruction of justice, and a firm that had been around for almost 100 years just collapsed. The consequences of this whole thing were absolutely devastating, but they were not felt equally, not even close. Top execs cashed out hundreds of millions in stock, often while they were on camera telling their own employees to keep buying. But for thousands of regular workers, the collapse was a personal catastrophe. Their retirement funds, which were heavily invested in Enron stock, became worthless. Their jobs were gone. Their life savings just evaporated. The executives got their golden parachutes, the workers got absolutely nothing.
You know, in the end, the Enron story isn't really just about accounting tricks. It's a powerful lesson about the seductive danger of a really good story. Enron sold the world this incredible narrative of endless innovation and growth, and everybody wanted to believe it. It's just a timeless reminder of what happens when the desire to believe in a good story is stronger than the courage to ask that one simple, crucial question. Wait a second, how does this actually work?